Christians are always fighting about politics. I don't understand it. I don't understand why people and Christians are always fighting over politics. But in today's episode, I really want to talk to you about how to have conflict with a person as a Christian over politics. So the reason why we're having this conversation is because oftentimes than not, I end up in conversations with people that are Christians and they want to argue about politics. Whether they agree with me or disagree with me, it just seems to become a thing. I do have to say that I guess if I had to give myself a political party, I would say I don't have one. Okay. I check other. Okay. I consider myself apolitical. And what that means is that I don't identify as a Republican. I don't align with a Democrat. I am just not political. When it is time to vote in an election, Jesus and I have conversations and he talks to me about things and he tells me what he wants me to do. And that's what I do, right? I follow his leading, no matter what I think, no matter what I feel, what other people say, or even what the candidates are saying. I go, tell me what to do. And that's what I'm going to do. Okay. Now, I know that is not everyone, and I completely understand that, right? So I wanted to talk just briefly today about how to have conversations with Christians over politics, about politics. Well, one of the first things to understand about communicating with people is that there's a principle that I learned years ago, and the philosophy, principle, or whatever is a man pressed against his will is of the same opinion still. A man pressed against his will is of the same opinion still. Meaning, if this person believes what they believe and you press them and press them and press them, you're not going to change their mind. That's still their opinion. Same goes for if you're over here and they're trying to press you, they're not going to change your mind, right? And so I don't think that we should be trying to fight our way into making people believe what it is we want them to believe, right? I think that before we're getting into conversation with people about politics, that we have to have the self-awareness to know that there is potential that you and this other person are not going to agree. And you have to make a decision in your mind that no matter what they think, no matter what they feel or what they say, you are still going to turn on love. You're still going to be kind. You're still going to listen. You're not going to get upset. You're not going to fight and argue, cuss, and condemn that person to hell. That you just already have an understanding that this person potentially will agree with you or will disagree with you. And you're going to be okay with that. You also have to settle in your mind that this person may not have that same opinion as you. That may not be of that same belief. They may try to press, and you have to just have a healthy understanding that you're not going to go there, right? If they start going down that road, okay? And then you also have an opportunity to just be open, okay? You have an opportunity to just be open to having dialogue. So there is, I don't know if she's Christian or not, but I just saw something on TikTok. This girl named Amanda Seals. She talks about lots of different things, but she really talks about, she often talks about politics, Black issues, Black Americans or whatever. And she's in this room where it's her, and I think she's liberal, and she's in a room full of conservatives. And I think it's all Black conservatives, right? And they are all disagreeing with her. Right. And one of the things that I loved when I was watching a clip of her was she disagreed with a lot of the things that they said. But while they were talking, she was able to listen. She was able to agree. She was able to disagree. When she agreed with them, she said, I agree, this, and this. This is how I disagree. She gave her facts. And when things got heated, she was finding her way to bring things down. And I can't say that either one of them pushed each other any kind of way, but it was great to just see them having a conversation, and it ended at a conversation. And I feel like we as Christians need to learn how to do that. Okay. That if you are political and you are hardcore in your belief, that you should be able to believe what you believe, but without popping off, without fighting people, without doing all these crazy things, right? Like, I'm a Christian. I love the Bible. I believe the Bible. So there are things that I believe that other people that I associate with do not believe. But my belief is not going to make me argue with them, curse at them, fight them, condemn them to hell. It's not going to make me do any of that. I am going to, at some point in time, say, well, I can respect your opinion. I disagree, and that is okay. I truly respect how you believe. And I think that both of us can still exist in this relationship, in this conversation, even with a differing belief. And if I still see that it's not going the way I want it to go, I will say, look, here's the deal. I love my mama. I love my sisters. I love my best friend. They believe a lot of things I don't believe, but I can still be in relationship with them because I love them. And I can say to them, I love you and I want a relationship with you. And if we can't talk about this, then let's just not talk about that. Let's just be one of those things we don't talk about, right? Like one time I was in this conversation with a Christian and his my friend and her husband was very hardcore and he was just going at me, wanting to be right. And I sat there and I said, can I say something? And he said, yeah. I said, can I tell you how I'm experiencing you? And he said, yeah. And I said, you're making me feel sad. And I got quiet and he said, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you care more about being right than you care about me. And I was like, in this moment, you're just going at me with your point and you do not care about me whatsoever. You just are right and you're trying to prove your point about being right. And you're trying to do that to everyone. And that's painful for me to experience because you would rather be right than to stay in relationship with me in this moment. His eyes, his wife's eyes. And he was like, well, I just want you to know. And I said, it's okay. I think you love me and you want me to know, but you have to become aware when you think that you're right and you could be wrong. When you just go at me in a way where you just dismiss the fact that I'm this human person sitting right here in front of you with my own thoughts, my own feelings, and my own experiences. And his wife wanted to jump in. I said, no, let me and him finish. And she just was quiet. And then he was just like, wow, I did not know that I was making you feel that way. And I said, well, if I can be honest, I think this is how you present this to a lot of people. And I was like, I think that a lot of people feel that type of way. I just have the words to articulate to you how I'm experiencing you. And then I gave him an example when he like cornered me in his garage and was just going at me about stuff because he was just wanting to just vent. And I was like, I engaged you. I let you go there. I was like, but when I left you, I didn't want to keep talking to you. And I was like, but I loved you enough to let you talk. But I loved me enough to not argue back and forth with you. He was just, but I learned that is one way to have conflict. That is one way to diffuse a situation. And it's one way to help a person understand what we're experiencing as we're experiencing that person. And so I think that if you're going to have political conversations or even religious conversations, because oftentimes things get heated, you got to be the bigger person. You've got to be the person who is in tune with their emotions, who's in tune with the temperature of the room, who has the ability to be able to say, I think that we are disagreeing and I think that it's starting to separate us a little bit in this moment. And I would rather us talk about SpongeBob SquarePants or what we're going to eat for dinner than keep down this road and it separate us, right? Like you have to be the person that does that, because if nobody's doing that, then both of y'all are like, you know what I mean? It's like there's a saying that says, if you argue with a fool, then nobody know who the fool is because y'all are both arguing, not calling you a fool, but you know what I mean? And I've just settled on that thought that is how I'm going to be. Now, is it always perfect that way? No, but I feel like I've gotten a lot better with it. I don't argue with people on Facebook. I just don't argue with people. Or if people are in my DM talking to me, I will send them an audio message so they can hear my tone. I can say, hey, and they can hear me, they can experience me. And then most times if something is heightened, it brings that thing all the way down because they go, okay, right? But I have to have the self-awareness and the connectedness to myself to be able to articulate a thing to a person and to be able to diffuse a thing, because that's just who we're supposed to be. But I also don't think that Jesus wants us arguing over politics. I don't think Jesus wants us arguing over Democrat versus Republican, because if we're honest, neither one of those systems are perfect. If we're honest and we look at what Republicans do in terms of typical whatever, and we look at what Democrats do, typical whatever, right? I'm not saying everybody, but just typical. Neither one of them perfect. Some of them got good and some of them got some bad. Some of them got some good, some of them got some bad, right? Like, I don't think that there's, even you can think that one is because you are biased to your party, right? But the truth is that if Jesus showed up today, he wouldn't go on either side. He would be like, I'm God. That's what he would say. I'm God, right? I'm not, those things. And I think that you can be a political type person, but you've got to be more of a Christian than a Democrat, than a Republican, than a Libertarian, right? Because if you are more this or that and not this, then I think you're a little off, right? You got to be more in tune with your Christianity and the word and people than in tune with your party. Because if you're more in tune with that party, we got an issue.